Welcome to the Helix webinar series. Today's session is on BMC Helix Knowledge Management, the key to AI success. This is our second session today, so this is for the US session. We will be keeping all the information from earlier and putting it into a blog post and also sending out both recordings to the set of attendees. So just before I introduce our presenter, Erik Livlinger, our product manager, couple of reminders for those that have or haven't been on Zoom before with the webinar. There is a Q&A section at the bottom, which is where you can put your questions in. Please do that during the presentation and the live demos. After we get to the end, which is roughly around 45 minutes, we will open up for live Q&A and address those questions, or we will take them at the end and offline and follow up directly. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Erik, but I'm just going to remind you to have a look at this statement, just to be clear. If you don't want to share your name, you may want to change it in Zoom. We do actually put this information out on social media platforms like YouTube and also onto our community page. So with that, I'm going to now hand over to Erik for his introduction.
Thanks, Sam. All right. Very nice to meet you all. Good morning, good afternoon, and good day from wherever you're calling in. Very glad that you are attending this call today. So my name is Erik, and I am the product manager for BMC Helix Knowledge Management by Come Around, which is a knowledge management software that I have been managing for the last 10 years. I used to manage this product for a small Swedish company called Come Around that was acquired by BMC for about 3 years ago. And at Come Around, not only did we build cloud-based knowledge management solution, we also did knowledge management all day and every day. So we helped customers to become successful in the area of knowledge management. We're coaching our customers, and we were part of driving the innovations within knowledge management. And it was at Come Around where my knowledge journey started and my sort of passion for knowledge management began about 12 years ago. And during my career, I've been fortunate enough to work with some of the greatest minds in the knowledge management business. Before Come Around, I held different positions within the ITSM and tech business. I was actually a bit surprised when I did the math the other day and realized that I started working in this industry about 25 years ago, back in 1998, before the Y2K, in a time where internet was still considered somewhat new. And since then, obviously, internet has been giving us web pages, search engines, smartphones, cloud computing, and social media. I actually heard on the morning news here in Sweden today that 62% of all the people in the world are on social media. That's quite interesting. So, and today everything we have is a service, and everything is in the cloud, right? So this really has a huge impact on our lives, how we interact with people, how we interact with technologies, how we communicate, and how we do business. And now, here we are again at another threshold where everything is about to change. I'm going to go off camera now and sort of go into the presentation a bit. So bear with me while I try this. Of course, did that. Here we go. Everything is about to change. If you have ever listened to a TED Talk or watched a YouTube video lately about AI, you have probably heard this phrase. In my research for this webinar, this phrase came up a couple of times. So I decided to reuse it and open my webinar in a similar fashion. And this webinar is not even about AI. It's about knowledge management. But I can't talk about knowledge management today without also mentioning AI, because, everything is about to change. To be a bit more specific, this webinar is called BMC Helix Knowledge Management, a key for successful AI. And it's about how we best can prepare ourselves and our organizational knowledge to meet the requirements from these new technologies. In today's rapidly advancing technological landscape, it's essential to recognize the critical role that knowledge management plays as the foundation for artificial intelligence and GPT technologies. So you have probably already heard about OpenAI's ChatGPT and Midjourney and other publicly available AI models, also known as generative AI or Gen AI. So generative AI is a broader description of AI that can generate new content, text, videos, images, etc. And one of the members of this family is also large language models or LLMs, such as OpenAI's ChatGPT, which are more focused on generating a conversational output. GPT is short for Generative Pre-trained Transformer. But despite having generative in its name, it's not capable of generating anything out of nothing. To be able to generate a conversational output, it first needs data and, as the name suggests, also training. GPT models are trained on vast amount of text data that they then use to generate an output, a new text that sounds just like the training data by predicting the next word, next sentence, next paragraph, based on whatever input we give it. It learns how we talk or how we write from consuming our existing text data. So that sounds pretty straightforward, right? We give GPT access to our data, our SharePoints, our other repositories for text data, and then we can ask all kinds of questions, ask it to generate new documents, get answers, and all that good stuff. Well, in theory, I would say yes. But what do we actually know about the quality of the text data that we possess? A large language model that learned from old or incomplete information might start to make mistakes known as hallucinations. And these hallucinations can range from being a bit, slightly off or to complete nonsense. The responses we get will only be as good as the underlying foundation of data. If the input is bad, the output will be bad too, resulting in AI potentially starting to make up its own answers. This is the old garbage in, garbage out all over again. OpenAI's ChatGPT, as an example, was trained on text from internet, right? Web pages, digitized books, Wikipedias, and more. Huge amount of text data to learn the human language. And I would say it's really, really good, right? I've tried it, I use it. It's really fun to use and it's very good. An all-knowing entity, right? Or is it? So I like to use ChatGPT for music. Me being a hobby musician, I like to ask ChatGPT to write me music that I can use in my practice routines. As an example, I can ask ChatGPT to write me a blues chord progression in the key of A minor. And it's really good at doing that kind of output. It's very fun. It's an excellent way to sort of explore music and get inspiration to practice. But if I ask GPT to write a chord progression that sounds like the latest Taylor Swift song, whatever that is called, it can't, because GPT does not know the latest Taylor Swift song, because GPT only have data up until January 2022. And we all know that, right? And it's okay. Doesn't really matter. But if we put this into the context of our organizations and our daily work, then it would matter. And we would expect this technology to know what we know as soon as we know it. So with this first part of the webinar, I have pointed out some of the challenges that we should be aware of. First, Gen AI, ChatGPT, GPT, need data to generate from. It cannot generate anything out of nothing. The data we give it needs to be of good quality. Otherwise, we will have garbage in, garbage out. And it would be great if the data could be up to date. The data, we serve it, and the answers we get back, it would help if it were, current. If only there were some kind of existing process available that could help us to overcome these challenges in an easy and effective manner. But there is one, right? Yes, you guessed it. It's knowledge management. Let's first address some fundamental questions. What is knowledge management? Why does it matter? Why should we care about this in a world where we have almost unlimited access to information? Well, let's start with the definition. Knowledge management is the collection of methods relating to creating, sharing, using, maintaining, and managing the knowledge and information of an organization. It involves gathering insight, structuring data, making it easily accessible, and promoting its use in decision-making and problem-solving. Some of the more common benefits of knowledge management that we talk about is productivity, right? Successful knowledge management enhances productivity by leveraging the collective knowledge of the organization. To put it very simple, sharing is caring, right? If we work together, we share knowledge, we will work more productive. Then we have even innovation. Knowledge management encourages the sharing of ideas, best practices, and lessons learned, fostering an environment where innovation thrives. It also empowers individuals to build upon existing knowledge to create new solutions. We also have learning. It enables us to capture and learn from our past experience, meaning that we can learn from our previous mistakes and stay away from replicating those kind of mistakes, and instead allowing us to replicate successful strategies that we have implemented in the past. And there's more benefits like customer satisfaction, consistency, really good. When we have knowledge available in a support service desk scenario, we can solve our issues and answering the questions in a more uniform and reliable way. Self-service is another benefit, of course, kind of self-explaining, but knowledge management will absolutely help us to launch a successful self-service project. Perhaps even more important is the fact that by practicing knowledge management, we get information that we can trust. Our knowledge base becomes a single point of truth, full of information that we can trust, and this will give us a competitive advantage. Organizations that effectively manage the knowledge are much better equipped to adapt to changing circumstances. And this is why we should care about knowledge management. This is why knowledge management is important. Because imagine now putting your knowledge base to use to train a GPT model. Your organization's collective experience as structured knowledge, organized and categorized knowledge that has been validated and approved. Information we can trust, fed into these models, enabling them to understand and reuse this information to generate human-like text and answers. In conclusion, knowledge management will give you a competitive edge when it comes to introducing generative AI or GPT technologies in your organization. And business organizations who use these technologies will most likely have an advantage compared with organizations who don't. Now let's go back to the challenges we identified earlier and talk about what we can do, how we can change our way of working to meet the requirements from generative AI. And we have established that Gen AI needs data to be able to generate. Data needs to be up to date, and the data needs to be of good quality. So if knowledge is the answer, then how do we know what knowledge we need? What knowledge is important to us? And how can we validate the knowledge we already have? Knowledge is the byproduct of an interaction or experience. And every interaction we have is opportunity to get more knowledge. We call it capture knowledge. If I am a service desk agent working in a service desk and I get a call from a user with a problem or issue, that is opportunity. Opportunity for me to capture new knowledge or to improve existing knowledge. I'm using the example with a service desk agent to make a point, because the best people to create and maintain our knowledge are the people who use it every day. And service desk is typically a good place to start the knowledge journey. Not saying that knowledge management is a process that belongs within IT and service desk. Absolutely not. Knowledge management is a centralized process, and it should be treated as such. All departments, all teams within an organization can benefit from knowledge management. But when we start our journey, it's easy to start in service desk. It's easy to see the benefit of start using knowledge management in the service desk. And we all try to be a bit proactive in our works, right? At least that's something that I experience. I hear a lot about being proactive and so forth. Hearing things like, we're gonna need 20 knowledge articles about these topics and we're gonna need them by Friday. Well, we are typically not very good at predicting the future, especially not in the absence of past experience. Even with past experience, our success rate is pretty small. If we agree that we cannot predict future events, then at least we should strive to be really good at identifying what we already know. We should put our efforts into capturing what we already know and evolve our knowledge base and its content based on demand and usage. This means that we create and update knowledge articles in the knowledge base when there's a need for it. When we get a question to service desk, we capture knowledge. And that's how we build knowledge on demand. Not because we think we need knowledge. We are striving to get just in time, not just in case. Demand would tell us what knowledge we need to capture. And based on reuse, we will understand what knowledge has value. Reuse of knowledge will validate the accuracy and the quality of that knowledge. Studying the patterns of reuse is also a great way to identify the articles we need to pay some extra attention to and improve based on our collective experience as knowledge workers. We do not spend time on reviewing or improving knowledge that will never be reused. The knowledge that is reused is validated based on demand, and again, the best people to do this validation of knowledge are the people who use it every day. So now we know how to identify what kind of knowledge we need, and we know how we can validate the knowledge we already have. Then what about keeping our knowledge base and our articles up to date? How do we do that? Well, rinse and repeat. Knowledge management is not something we can do just once or even once in a while. We need to do this every day and develop our knowledge base of collective experience to date. Our knowledge evolves all the time. Just think of all the changes that are going on in an organization. We have new policies, we have new technologies, organizational changes, and more things, right? And as our organization grows and changes, so should our knowledge base. Our knowledge is not going to be 100% correct and complete forever. And the easy way to do this is to make knowledge part of our daily work, included into our existing processes. As an example, if we stay on the service desk scenario, we should integrate the reuse, improvement, and creation of knowledge into the problem-solving process. In practice, it means that the knowledge base becomes the first place we go to find information and solution. If we have knowledge, we will find it and we can reuse it. If we don't find any knowledge, we grab the opportunity and create new knowledge based on the input from the requester. So let's summarize this part and point out these items, the items that cover the challenges as key success factor for knowledge management. Number one, create and grow your knowledge base and your articles based on demand. You don't need to know what knowledge you need to have. Let your organization tell you. Second, validate your existing knowledge base on demand. The reuse of knowledge will tell us what knowledge we need to review and or improve. Third, ensure that your knowledge is up to date and accurate by evolving your knowledge base every day. Make knowledge management a byproduct of solving problems or answering questions. And we should also try to have some fun while we do this, right? Recognize and reward the people involved in the knowledge management process, the people sharing, collaborating to continuously improve our knowledge. Finally, to be successful in knowledge management, we also need to have the right technical capabilities. A knowledge software that can do the job. And I can tell you that BMC, not only are we investing in GPT with Helix GPT, first launch out, looks amazing, but we are also investing heavily in knowledge management with BMC Helix Knowledge Management by Come Around, the latest knowledge management application from BMC that fully supports the core principles of knowledge management and is integrated into the Helix ecosystem. So I thought, let's have a quick look at the knowledge capabilities that we have, and just to see how it works. And since we are service desk agents, we start in Helix ITSM. So I'm an agent. I have someone on the phone and I'm about to start to log in my case, right? So I go to sign in again. I go to Smart Recorder. I start to grab the user information and then I start to entering the problem. As soon as I do that, I'm doing this very simple, by the way. In a real live scenario, we'll probably add some more information. But anyway, as soon as I add this, it starts to search here on the side and I get these recommended knowledge articles. Now, these are coming from the Come Around knowledge management database. So from this search result, we can see that these articles have some numbers, like we have views and we have some linked tickets. This tells me that these articles are probably being used, especially this top one that looks really, really good. So if I click on that article, it will open up like this and I can review the article quickly just to make sure that this is actually the article that I can use to solve the question from the requester or just share to the requester. some items we can pick from just viewing this article. We have the numbers here again. This actually added one view to this article. That's okay. So a couple of important things I want to mention. Articles have a clear structure. BMC Helix Knowledge Management by Come Around is based on the KCS methodology. And within KCS, there's a clear structure for how an article should look. And that is the same kind of structure we use in Come Around. If you don't know what KCS is, to put it very, very simple, KCS, I think of KCS as a blueprint for how to do knowledge management. It's also a blueprint for how to structure your articles and your entire knowledge base. So an article has a title. An article has a field called issue, environment, resolution, and we also have something in the bottom that called cause. We can't see it because it's not being used. We can also see that the articles can contain text, images, and playable videos. And we can, of course, do all the formatting and all that good stuff in the article. But if I am my service desk agent and I'm having someone on the phone, I probably don't have time to do formatting or add images or do all that good stuff. The only thing I need to focus on at this moment, let's say we are here, we didn't find anything. So we went into create new and we choose knowledge and we ended up here to create a new knowledge article. The only thing I need to focus on right now is to capture as much information as possible from the requester. And I do this in the issue field. I need to find some title. If I can find a good title, perfect. But this is where I should put my efforts. In KCS, we talk about capturing in the speed of speech. So we don't need to focus on formats. We don't need to focus on spelling. It needs to make some sense, but it's really important that we try to capture as much information as possible. If we know, or if the requester tells us, we can also add environmental information. So this could be something that describes where this issue occurred, like Windows, Outlook, etc. Another thing that's very important when we are capturing knowledge is that we focus on using the same language as the requester, the same words, the same phrases. Because when user A calls in and tells us about this problem, user B now searches for this problem in our self-service solution. They will probably use the same kind of words and phrases. So if we are using our own words and phrases, then we will hurt findability. And that's something that's, of course, very important. If our users can't find our knowledge articles, we don't really need to have them. So, as I said, as a service desk agent, when I create an article, I don't need to focus anything about the look and feel of that article, because I'm not going to put this to publish. I'm going to save this as a work in progress or a draft. And that means that my colleagues can still see this article. So if my colleague in service desk get a call about the same thing and start to search, he or she will see that there's someone already started on a knowledge articles. It's not finished, but someone has started. So I don't need to write another one. That's another thing that's very important, that we don't create duplicates. So here we capture. Now, if we go to have another UI here. So this is where we can make the article look really, really pretty when we have the time. But I'm not really why I opened this up, but I do want to show you the report back. Because we talked about the reuse and how we can understand, what knowledge do we need and how much is it used, etc. This is something we can do in here. Business intelligence. In here, we have about 10 different reports. for knowledge management. They are built on everything that we know about knowledge management. They're based on KCS, and they're also based on customer input. So typically we have a report called views. This could be interesting to look at. Let's find a better time. This can give me some understanding about the views of the article. I can, of course, filter this and so forth. But more important is to look at this report, article associations, because this tells us every time we pin an article in Service Desk or every time we pin an article in business workflows, we create a relationship between ticket and the article. So in this report, we can actually analyze and track how often our Service Desk agents are reusing our knowledge articles. And this is important. This is another level of understanding usage. And it also gives us a very good view on what articles are valuable to us. And again, if no one is looking at the articles, we don't need to review them, then we don't need to look at them either. So while we are here, I also want to quickly show you how we can analyze search. These reports capture search phrases. So in here, we can see what kind of knowledge is knowledge workers and users looking for. It's called click-through rate. Click-through rate is typically a measurement that we use in online marketing, where we want to see the impact of an ad that we publish or similar. We have the same idea behind this. When we search, the search engine in come around is so good these days, so you will always get a hit result back. But the important thing is not if you got a result back, but if the result you got back was relevant. And that's exactly what you can see in this report. And with that, you will, of course, understand do we have the knowledge our users is looking for. And a typical scenario where we would see this dipping a bit is when we implement something new in our organization. Let's say we implement some new technology and people start to ask for knowledge, go to the self-service engagement point and start to look for knowledge about this new technology, don't find anything. That could be a typical case where we can see that search phrases about something that we don't have starts to pile up. So before we go back to my slide deck, I also want to show you Helix GPT. So very simple. This is Helix GPT in Digital Workplace. So if I do a very simple, do we have a very simple question? And that's the response. So I asked, do we have a vacation policy? And we do. We have multiple vacation policies. We have offices in different places in the world, so they are different. So the answer that it gave us is that basically it says it has looked through these knowledge articles, all about vacation policies, and then it summarizes and answers saying, yes, there is a vacation policy for employees, full, blah, 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 etc. And then show me the sources. And this is very good because since I get the sources, I will understand, as a user, I will understand that, okay, this is not something that the AI has just made up. It's actually some truth behind it because here are the sources. And these sources are coming from ComeAround, and they are also coming from ITSM. So very quick look at GPT. Now let's go back. So we have spent some time talking about knowledge management and how you can prepare yourself and your knowledge for AI. What about the other way around? How can AI help us with our knowledge management? That's also a very interesting approach. Hope you can see the disclaimer here at the bottom. So this part contains thoughts and opinions, and they should not be considered as planned product development or roadmap items. Anyway, I think it's very easy to see the use case, that the one that we just looked at with Gen AI. We ask them questions and we get a response back. This would be, I would say, the typical use case. And again, from experience of using OpenAI's ChatGPT, I think it's super effective. To a point where it starts to sort of change the way we interact with search. We no longer need to search for pages that hold the answer to we seek. Instead, we can just ask the question and GPT will read through the pages for us and just give us the answers. So I'm thinking, since I haven't been trying this for some time, I'm thinking that it's so strong, it will probably have impact on the way that we use, like search engines, etc., going forward. So it's going to be very interesting to see how this is going to be utilized. But this use case is not really knowledge management. This is a result of knowledge management, an outcome of our efforts we put into our knowledge base. To talk about how AI can help us with knowledge management, we need to go back to the very definition of the process and identify the challenges to understand how we best can put AI technologies to use. And one of the more common challenges that I hear about is, how do I keep the knowledge base up to date? And this is not something new. I've been in this business for a long time, and the challenge with keeping the knowledge base up to date is something that I hear about from customers, since I began working with knowledge management, more or less. And I still hear it. One solution is to follow the process, as we talked about earlier. Capture and improve knowledge based on demand, make knowledge a byproduct of the problem-solving process, and continue to do this over time. That will help. But perhaps AI can help us to make this part a bit more automated. Similar to having a co-pilot when we write code, we could potentially have something similar, like a knowledge assistant available to help us protect the quality of our knowledge base by informing us if articles are incomplete or if they are not meeting the expected level of our content status. One thing that comes to mind is identifying and correcting articles that are not written with the same words and phrases used by the end user. If I take myself as an example, if someone asked me to write a knowledge article about how to create knowledge articles, I would use the words and phrases I commonly use. And you may have noticed that when I talk about creating knowledge, I like to say capture knowledge, because that's how I have learned. That's how KCS talks about it, and that's how I talk about it. But a user would probably search for how do I create rather than how to create, how to capture, sorry. And here I think that GPT could help us. Perhaps tracking as I write, track the text that I write and notify me when I start to use a language that it can't recognize. Or it could read through articles and change the word and phrases where applicable to improve the findability and usage. If GPT can read our knowledge base, it will learn the way we write our articles, and then it could reuse the word patterns and phrases to update new articles if necessary. It's of course compelling to think of GPT as a way to generate new knowledge, and I agree. it is an interesting idea. However, when we talk about generating new knowledge, there are some considerations we first need to address. First, and I think this is very important. Knowledge management is not a competition about having the most knowledge articles. Okay? Just creating a lot of knowledge articles is not successful knowledge management. We should care about quality, not quantity. So we probably don't need to create or generate new knowledge for every interaction we have. I mean, if we have a work in progress, I would assume we already have knowledge and therefore could practice reuse in most of our interactions. But I think there are ways we could generate high quality content or summarizes based on input that can help in creating and updating knowledge articles. We have talked about Service Desk as a great source for capturing knowledge. And of course, this would apply for a GPT-generated knowledge article as well. But there are also more opportunities to capture knowledge from other locations in an organization. We could potentially use GPT to summarize meetings and internal discussion, as an example. Just think of all the meetings we have where we share ideas and experience that leads to in the end, decisions. Surely there would be parts of these discussions we could reuse to generate new knowledge. And as a bonus, perhaps AI can use the summary of our meeting to connect us with people in the organization who have similar ideas or conversations to sort of help us foster a culture of knowledge sharing. So these are some of the ideas and thoughts that I think about for how AI can help us with our knowledge management endeavors in the future. It's sure is an exciting time to work in the area of knowledge management with all this new technology that we now have access to, that far from superseding the need of knowledge management actually makes it even more important. And I'm very fortunate and grateful to be able to continue my knowledge journey here at BMC, who really understand the value of knowledge management when it comes to driving innovations with GPT and AI technologies. So if you are now thinking that, based on what I have talked about in this webinar, that this seems to be a bit much and would require a lot of work, a lot of changes internally for us to get this knowledge management thing going. Well, as I told you in the beginning, everything is about to change. So perhaps some small changes to the way you work with knowledge today is a small price to pay to be much better prepared and aligned with whatever changes that will happen in the future. And you don't need to do this alone. Feel free to reach out to me and let us discuss how we can help you work more effectively with your knowledge management.